culture that's waiting in the wings to disciple your kids and to make converts. And so I really believe and I expect the Lord to really set some people free today.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com. She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The results are there. Income growth for the bottom decile, the bottom 10% of the population, it's 6.5%. You know, since the president was elected, we've created 56,000 auto jobs in America. And so everything has lifted off, and our view is it's just going to continue.
These immigrants, when immigrants come here with their hopes and dreams and aspiration and determination to make the future better for their families, that optimism, that courage, their American traits, and all of these immigrants make America more American.
I am always optimistic, you know, but now it's just vital. Congress must act. The president has made this a priority, continues to make it a priority in every way he possibly can exercise his authority. But look, this is Congress, courts, and criminals. That's who we got to fix.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Welcome to the program. I'm Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right here on American Family Radio, Urban Family Talk, and other fantastic networks. Yeah. America's Voice TV. And you can find out more about me at Project 21, which is nationalcenter.org. And you can also check out the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm their 2018 Journalist of the Year. And we are just slamming and jamming today. It's a really interesting day. I got to say, just to start off the show on a note that has zero to do with politics, and maybe it might even be too much information, but today for my lunch, I roasted 2 portobello mushroom caps, and I used steak seasoning to try to trick myself into thinking that they were steaks. Not because we don't have steaks in the freezer, we do. Not because I'm, you know, like some anti-meat lunatic, you guys know I'm not, but the portobello mushrooms are the caps are 20 calories each. So 20 calories for each mushroom cap, and then olive oil and some sliced up potatoes, the tiny little red potatoes, and roasted in the oven on the top shelf, 400 degrees for 20 minutes. And then I sprinkled a little bit of A1 sauce on those and ate them. And I had to say, they did not convince me that they were steak, but they were really good. So take that with you. How about that for some news and information? So if you're wondering about the political side, today on the show, we're going to discuss how 41% of New Yorkers can't actually afford to live there. And they're just getting this information because now that they can't deduct their state and local tax deductions, so their high property taxes, and that they're not able to deduct that anymore. Now, that was a way that New York, and obviously New York contributes a great deal to the federal government budget. Their taxes are high. They consider themselves to be producers and not takers. They call some southern states takers, meaning that they put less money in and they get out of the federal government. This is the system that's set up. And if we don't like it, we send representatives to Washington, D.C. to change that. But regardless of the characterizations that different states may make about other states, the fact is New York has an untenable tax burden, and it's been decades. I have a couple that I know here in St. Louis, and they were both stockbrokers, so not hurting for change. And they left New York because of their local property tax burden. It had become unsustainable for them. And this is a couple who they made really, really good incomes, both of them working at the New York Stock Exchange and running brokerages of their own. So if couples like that left New York 20 years ago, imagine what people are going through now. And that's people at the upper end of the income scale. For people who are, you know, working much closer to the median income for Americans, or, you know, middle class, working class, even upper class Americans, it is very difficult to afford a normal lifestyle in New York. A regular 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment there is $1,700 a month in rent. And purchasing one is an astronomical endeavor that most people, when you think about buying a home, and a 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath house on a third of an acre in the Midwest costs half of what a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath apartment costs in New York, that's what drives people to move to other parts of the country. Now, I see some good news in that whole story, and we'll get into that, but I just want to leave this with you to think about, and then when you call in the third segment, maybe you'll have a response. could it be that the way we have all of our heavily populated areas are centered around these major cities where the burdens there are too great for people to have a good lifestyle? People don't want to have kids. Millennials are slowing down on having kids because they can't afford to get started in life. And actually what they, start a family somebody's triggered out there, but they can't afford to start a family. And could it be that a lot of these people, maybe millions of them, need to move back to the parts of the country that are right now more sparsely populated, where you can make a living and still have a job? Could that be? I don't know. We'll see. You can call in at 866-963-2037. So our guest for today is Brian Kolfage. He's the mastermind behind the Grassroots crowdfunded border wall campaign. You remember this one? I was all giddy about it, and I was sharing it on social media. We're going to get an update from him. The website for him is webuildthewall.us. And we're going to discuss how one of the Lieutenant General McFarland, he had some comments on identity politics that I thought were pretty interesting as an Air Force veteran and fourth-generation military veteran, where I hadn't considered what kind of an impact the current identity politics mantra that's being beat into our kids in public school, what impact that was having on people who go into the military, recruits. I just remember, and I've shared the story many times about being in basic training, and one of the very first days they had us in an auditorium, and we were sitting there, just kind of thinking, what are we doing in here? Thank God we're in here and not out doing push-ups. If you make a mistake, they make you do 50 push-ups, and it was just murder. And so we were in the auditorium. We were just glad to be sitting down. And he comes out and he says, I'm here to reorient you. You're going to be a unit, an asset of the U.S. government, and we're going to be a team, one unit, one team. And he said, right now you're sitting here, you're thinking about yourself. You think about yourself in terms of what you want, what you feel, what you want to get done. And I'm here to let you know that over the next 6 weeks, we're going to turn you into a useful instrument of the U.S. military, and that you will be an asset to us, and you will be a team member. You will think about your team first. And I remember thinking, this guy's got to be out of his mind. There's no way I'm thinking about teams before myself. But by the end of that 6 weeks, I was definitely doing that. And it didn't happen at the end. It happened like shortly after his speech. I started thinking about the team. So it's interesting to hear him talk about that. And then we'll also get into MAC Cosmetics and Benefit. Those are two cosmetics makers. They also make creams, everything having to do with beauty for women. They've launched campaigns to fund Planned Parenthood. And so, me, you throw down your gauntlet as a company. You wanted to let me know that you're going to take my money as profit and use it to fund something that I find morally repugnant, like Planned Parenthood. Well, out we go. I'm gathering up all my MAC Cosmetics, what's left over, because I really haven't bought anything new from them in years, but I still have some eyeshadows and things, and I'm going to get rid of them. And I might even do it on a live stream. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of these companies taking a side in the culture battle, knowing that multiple millions of us, tens of millions of us, are pro-life. So right now, before we get to the encouragement, because it has something to do with this next audio clip, you got Elizabeth Warren, who basically she went into preacher mode. Yeah, I said it, preacher mode. I go into it too sometimes. It's where I'm really good on a subject and I'm like, you know what, the Lord has something for these people and I'm sharing it and it's awesome. And she thought she was going there too with her pro-abortion self. So she's explaining why God sends some people to heaven and some to the other place. It's number 4.
And I raised my children in the Methodist Church. What it is for me is the importance of the lessons we learn when we remember our values, when we remember our faith. The story for me is Matthew 26. And I'm sure some of you, a lot of you, know this story. This is the one where the shepherd is dividing the world into the sheep and the goats. And as we all know, sheep are going to heaven, goats, they're not. And the sheep ask him, why us? Why us, Lord? Why did you pick us? We look like those guys. And the shepherd, the Lord, answers back by saying, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me water. I was in prison and you visited me. Naked and you clothed me. Inasmuch as ye hath done it unto one of these, the least of thy brethren, ye hath done it unto me. And what I hear in that is two things that guide me every day. The first is there is God. There is value in every single human being. Every single human being. And the second is that we are called to action.
So all of the human beings except the ones who are still in their mother's womb, clearly, because she sees value in the human beings that she can redistribute income from other human beings to the human beings she feels are needy, but she doesn't see any value, any intrinsic value in human life that's still in the womb. And I wish that, because she's on CNN, so obviously she's in an echo chamber of clap fest, city, but she's not going to get the questions that regular Americans would want to know. So by that statement that you just made about Matthew 26, the least of these, then you would be opposed to what your party is currently trumpeting, which is that a baby born alive after an abortion who could be put up for adoption to a waiting families waiting for newborn babies, they outnumber any other group when it comes to adoption. You would be willing to let that child live and be taken care of and placed for adoption instead of having the mother and the child, or the mother and the doctor, decide what to do with that child, as in kill it. That's the question she should have been asked. And so what I saw in the video clip is her making a whole lot of these, she's gesturing and she's pulling the audience in with this emotional rhetoric, and she's using the Bible to justify her position as a Democrat, a redistributor of wealth. But while she's doing that, she's ignoring the biggest issue we have in this country right now, the blood crying out from the street and the road, the highway and the byway, the abortions that are happening on Saturdays and Sundays while Christians have their hands lifted in church, singing at the top of our lungs, little, contemporary music bands drumming on the drums and playing the guitar, and all of us are waving and singing, and we think we're doing something while the abortuaries are cranking out the death. And she has the audacity to quote Mark 26 and the parable of the sheep and the goats to try to justify her platform. And she had people in that audience eating it up. The sweet words tickling their ears and causing them to feel as if this is the reason why we want to have someone who's a Democrat, because they're quoting the Bible and they're religious and spiritual too. And they know it's not just the people on the right. And far be it from me, I don't see it as a right-left issue. It's a Bible or unbiblical issue. It's hey, I'm on the side of life and I'm on the side of what God has ordained and what his word says. I'm obedient to that, or I'm not. So it's not a left-right issue, but it kind of is in the aspect of who you're going to vote for. You have to vote for someone based on whether or not they believe a baby, is a human being, is a creation of God, is something that you can't touch. You can't snuff that life out, whether it's unborn or born. Because really now we're into the weeds. We're in semantics and we're talking about infanticide. They're killing the babies in the womb. It's still killing in the womb. We're making a designation because our law currently splits the issue. It's infanticide if the baby's already born. And the Democrats are saying it isn't. And she's one of those Democrats, and she's quoting the scripture. So I'll leave that to you. We have a phone call I want to get to really quickly. Ken in Arkansas, thank you so much for calling the show today. Uh-oh, I may need to do this. I may need to hit this button myself. Do I?
I've been listening to you for a while, and I love your laugh.
Thank you. Thanks.
I really enjoy it. And you're exactly where I am. Thought process is exactly where I am. I just don't get it. How can we continue to let these radicalized Democrats come in and change all the rules to accommodate what they want when they don't what they want? They literally, it's just like Congress wanting to jack it up to 13 members. When they're not in control and they don't get what they want, They just find a way to go change the rules, change the laws.
Absolutely, Ken. Thank you so much for calling and for the compliments. And we'll be back with our first guest today in just a little bit. Brian Kolfage will be with us. Stay right there.
It's amazing but true. When it comes to one of America's biggest household expenditures, healthcare, a lot of people think they've got no choice. People are used to thinking we have to do it this way, but they don't. Yes, you have the freedom to choose an alternative with your healthcare. It's MediShare, and it costs way less than the alternatives. The typical family saves $500 a month, not a year, a month. And if you're single, this can save you a lot too. And let's face it, a big reason MediShare is 400,000 people strong, it just works. They've shared over $3 billion in medical bills, so they can help share your needs too. Joining MediShare for so many people is one of those things that makes you say, why didn't I do this before? So yes, the time has come for something better. Look into joining MediShare and see why so many people are opting out of the old way and into the new. Why not look into this? Just call 855-PSALM-23. That's 855-PSALM-23. 855-PSALM-23.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with A Legacy Moment. I have a great friend who teaches at a Christian college, and God has used this guy in wonderful ways, especially to mentor and encourage young men. He's been very successful in helping them find and discover God's mission for their lives and get after it. He expresses great confidence in them, and that confidence bolsters their faith. And years later, after establishing thriving ministries, often they return to thank my friend for seeing their potential. Did you know that God does the same with us? Listen to Judges chapter 6, verses 12 and 14. God calls Gideon and gives him an assignment that really defies where he is. Verse 12 says, "And the angel of the Lord appeared to him," meaning Gideon, "and said to him, 'The Lord is with you, O valiant warrior.'" Now that's ironic because Gideon was hiding out. He was afraid. He was scared of the Midianites. He was concealing himself, and the Lord says, "God is with you, O valiant warrior." Verse 14, "And the Lord looked at him and said, 'Go in this your strength and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have not I sent you?'" God focuses on our potential and not on where we are. Gideon was not in a place of strength, so to speak, but God saw who he could make him. God will often call us what he wants us to become. He called Gideon a valiant warrior before he fought the first fight. He said, "Gideon, you're a strong man. You're a valiant warrior. I see what you can be." That's what God sees in you. Here's what I want you to remember today. God's call to do something is also a call to be someone. Submit to God's call for your life. He sees what he can make of you. So now become what he calls you.
Legacy Moment is a production of Moody Radio.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. You can find out more at afr.net, stacyontheright.com, urbanfamilytalk.com. And yeah, I'm wearing my Great British Bacon shirt today. It says, "Nobody likes a soggy bottom," and it means the bottom of the pie when the inside of the pie has seeped through to the outside. The Brits call that a soggy bottom, and that's not good when you're baking pies. Just want to let you know. All right, so welcome back to the program. It's my pleasure to welcome our next guest to the show. It's Brian Kolfage. He's the mastermind behind the Grassroots crowdfunded border wall campaign. And I'm so excited to have you today on the show, Brian. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about this. You got the website, webuildthewall.us. And what is the status? What kind of help are you able to provide to getting the wall finished up and built or started or what have you?
Well, we're doing this project privately, and we're able to give people who want more for security protection, and we're going to build on their property privately and give them the protection that they haven't had, the protection that the government's not giving them.
So you're talking about people who live on the border, who currently have no wall, no federally provided protection, and they have a lot of illegal aliens dying on their property. Sometimes they're getting robbed and stuck up, and sometimes they come home and their house has been ransacked by illegal aliens. And these are people who live they live on the outer edges of our country, where we are so used to living in the areas where if I dial 911, the police are here in a minute and 30 seconds, but that's not the case out where these people live.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what the problem is. And they feel neglected. They've been asking for border security, and our government hasn't given them what they're asking for. And for the first time, these people are going to be able to have the chance to protect their property and really impact nationally. And like those sections, we're able to provide pretty large sections, impact the cartels that are coming across, and just Americans in time of need, they come together to get things done. And this is a national crisis, and American people are coming together to help these people on the border. And I mean, it's just not helping people on the border. Every state now is a border state with the opioid crisis going on. We met people in Cincinnati and Detroit who have lost family members to the opioid crisis, and this is going to affect them as well.
So when you say you guys are going to put up border wall, this is obviously you're only doing that for people who live on the southern border, who their private property borders with Mexico, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So have you been able to do that yet, or is that something that's still in process?
We haven't started building yet. We've been in the progress of it's been 2 months now, and we've identified at least 8 locations. We've been working with lawyers to get the whole thing legally handled through the property owners. And where we're at right now is with our first property that we're going to be building next month. We're going to start breaking ground next month. And I wish I could name where it's at, but we can't name because of the ACLU and these other liberal groups who want to sue us to impede our progress. But it's actually happening. The process is happening. We're going to be filing permits still pretty soon, and the project is moving forward. But as soon as we start breaking ground, we'll be putting that information out there to show the American people what we're doing, and it's going to be happening. And we're going to be putting up our border wall before the president gets his. So I think it's going to make some pretty big waves when this private project is doing more than the federal government's doing.
So let's talk a little bit about that. The latest breaking news about the border or the immigration problem is that with all of the detention facilities bursting at the seams, they've now taken to busing people into different cities and dropping them off. 3 busloads of illegal aliens were just dropped off. I didn't even look to see where, I was so enraged, but it was on Drudge. Where do you see the president going with this when he literally has his hands tied behind his back by Congress and their inaction on the Flores decision?
Yeah, I mean, he does have his hands tied behind his back, and he's probably the first president that's actually fighting for us to fix the solution, and even for both sides. And I think it's a bigger problem than just the border wall. The border wall is really a band-aid to the issue. The issue is the Mexican cartels, and I think we can be honest that Mexico is a failed narco state. Almost every state in Mexico is controlled by these cartels, and it's time we start taking the fight to these cartels, since the cartels are the problem. And it's going to take more than just the wall. And I think our laws in general are being abused. That we need revamped, up-to-date laws about asylum. A lot of people say, "Oh, asylum is a privilege if you're being persecuted." And that's correct, but political asylum is, but economic asylum is not, and that's the issue. Just because your country is failing, it doesn't give you the right to come to the United States and claim asylum. Our asylum laws are for people who are being discriminated against on race, gender, nationality, or who are their lives are in danger of being killed from persecution. And that's the law. And we need to uphold those laws instead of it being abused. And every country falls on hard times. It doesn't mean they can come to the United States on a free pass. It's these laws are outdated, and it's going to take a lot more than just the wall. It's going to take laws being revamped.
It is. And so what you have this viral crowdfunding campaign, and you're an American. You have an interesting backstory yourself. but you're not separating yourself off as being, some kind of really unique individual, in that you just see an issue that you really care about and you see it as impacting all Americans. And so you decided to step up and do something about it. What can other Americans do who might be listening to this and feeling, you feel helpless? That's what I felt. What made me feel so angry when I saw that story on Drudge is when I hear that the U.S. federal government is taking illegal aliens and busing them into a city and just dropping them off because they can't detain them anymore, and they can't bust them into Mexico and drop them off. Like it's as if I'm living in some kind of, it's a horrible alternate reality in which I know we have laws that are just and protect the weak and the innocent and punish the evildoers, but we also have laws like the ones that are permitting them to do this, and you feel powerless, you feel helpless. What can Americans do to kind of take action the way you have?
Yeah, I think that in a time of crisis, hold on a second. I think the American people, they need to know that they can fight, they can take action. And I think that what this project is about is about people coming together when the government is not getting their job done. And what we're asking is for is people just to come and join our movement. And we need volunteers, we need donations, but also just people the chance to stand up and to fight back. This is not a project about sitting back and to get stuff done. We're taking action. We're going to be building walls. We're going to be building sections of the United States wall exactly as the federal government's doing it. It's the exact same standard. And I think that's the beauty of this thing. We're coming together to fight for what we believe in. And it's not all about the donations. It's about us coming together. And we're going to need the people to come together. And we set up a website at webuildtheworld.us, and I'll just send us a message on there of like if they own a company, if they own a trucking company, if they just come out and help in any way. We need all the volunteers that we can get to get this project going. Because ultimately, that's how we're able to build this wall for so cheap and undercut what the government's doing. Like they charge $18 million per mile, and we're able to do it for $2 to $3 million per mile. It's because we have the American people volunteering to work and get this job done.
That statistic is crazy. $18 million a mile for steel ball-yard fencing, which the cartels regularly, if they don't like a section of our border wall, they just drive a truck up to it and put some explosive down and blow it up. They probably watch a lot of our TV and movies because in the movies, right, Brian? Yeah. In our movies in America, coming out of Hollywood in America, if someone doesn't like something or they want to kill a whole bunch of people or they want to blow a hole in something, whether it's a bank vault or, anything, they'll just put some C4 on there and then they stick a little antenna in it and then they go around the corner, which I don't know how accurate that is, but they go around the corner and then they press a button and it blows the door off or the lid or whatever it is they're trying to get into. They just blow it off. And so the drug cartels are like, oh, thanks for showing us that. They just blow holes in our steel ball-yard fencing and drive trucks through it. So $18 million, it doesn't sound worth it.
No, not at all. And that's what it boils down to. The problem is the cartels. And so why are we not fighting the cartels? Why are we not helping our neighbor to the south who has cancer? Why are we not ridding the cancer of it? It's just going to keep getting worse. And the cartels have been controlling Mexico for decades. I mean, very long time. And they've been given a free pass. I mean, there's been more murders in Mexico than there has been in Iraq and Afghanistan last year. And that shows you something. If there's all these deaths going on, all this crime, why are we not putting a big focus on these cartels and border security?
That's a good point.
It's going on, and I think it's time we take a fight to the cartels.
Well,
it's been long enough.
A simple designation of the cartels as terrorist organizations would change everything, because then the U.S. military could be engaged, and they would use the same kind of attacks that we use on terrorist cells in Syria and what we used on Al-Qaeda and most recently on ISIS. What we currently use on ISIS is we use drone warfare and we use intelligence, and we go in and we kill indiscriminately because they're enemy combatants, and so we don't have to delineate. We can kill at will. Exactly. That is what we should be doing with the drug cartels, because they're literally destroying. They've lowered our life expectancy due to the overdoses. They're so numerous. I mean, all the information is there, and you're making the points. And I just want to say, for me to you, and I'm sure the listening audience is right here behind me with me when I say thank you for being proactive and taking some action. I think you're doing this can empower some other people out there. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to own a construction company, but you can get together with other Americans and make something happen. And I'm looking forward to updates from your website showing some wall. You don't have to tell us exactly what the address is. We get it. But you could show us some pictures of some wall going up, and we would really be encouraged by that. I applaud what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we hope to talk to you again soon, Brian, with some updates on wall, and keep up what you're doing. The website is webuildthewall.us, and he even has merchandise on there if you want to support what they're doing. You can buy mugs, sweatshirts, T-shirts, hats to kind of support what Brian and his team are doing down at the southern border. We need more Americans to step up and do what he's doing. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right, talk to you again soon. I know that originally he was going to give the money to the federal government, and then he ran into some problems, and news stories kind of dwindled down a little bit, and I think people thought, another one. He started something and he couldn't finish it, and what did he do with the money? Well, he's actually still doing what he said he would do, which is his goal was to get wall built at the southern border, and so he's still doing that. And I think that's to be applauded because he really ran up against a brick wall. And I love it how, have you noticed that whenever someone who's a private citizen says they want to do something, then the Democrats and the federal government, they sick the ACLU or some other organization on them, or they'll just have the government, well, we don't accept this or that. And then the person is left thwarted and unable to help. And Americans are really wanting to help because they want to see some change here. They want to protect other Americans. They want to feel like they're not powerless. Because it's funny to me is we don't have anybody telling us we can't pay any taxes. We don't have anybody telling us, oh, don't send those checks in. Don't let them automatically suck that money out of your check before it hits your bank account. Before your money slides into your bank account, they've already got theirs. You don't see anybody saying that, do you? No one ever says, no, don't pay your taxes. You dissatisfied? No, they're like, you're dissatisfied. You keep paying your tax, but also you can't do anything about us busing illegal aliens into your town and dropping them off. And the other part of the story that I thought was so interesting is you've got churches in the area that hear these illegal aliens are inbound, and so they rush over and they're trying to find like shelter for them, and so they're just not roaming the street. So for everybody out there who says prayers, thoughts and prayers, oh, all y'all Christians, all you want to do is hate on illegal aliens. All you evangelical Christians who want to build a wall, you hate illegal aliens. Well, it's our churches that we're funding with our tithes that are rushing in and taking care of the busloads of illegal aliens. It's not the federal government lackeys, the ones who worship at the altar of Barack Obama. They're not rushing out and helping these people. It's amazing to me that the same people who are pushing this policy on us and making it possible for busloads of illegal aliens to be dropped off in American towns and cities are the same ones who have their little pocketbooks and their front doors closed. They're not doing anything to help when it comes to the real people who, these are, sure, they're raw numbers, but each of those raw numbers is a person who is ending up inside the country. And what are we to do? Especially when the assumption is that they all speak Spanish and English. No, they don't. And a lot of them don't speak the Spanish that, like the Spanish we learn in, if you take Spanish from kindergarten on, which is like the policy at a lot of these public schools nowadays, or if you choose Spanish as your second language or foreign language that you're going to take for 3 or 4 years in high school, you're not speaking the same Spanish that the people speak when they come from these kind of really not localized areas from Guatemala. It's like all different. It's not all the same Spanish. So the English as a second language teachers in America are having to learn different dialects and different versions of Spanish to teach. They have to be able to speak to these people so they can teach them English. So this is a huge, huge problem. And we need to have something done about it, right? Wow. I paused and then the break music came on. I might be getting good at this old radio thing. All right, listen. We have your calls when we get back from this break. And the number that you can call to join us is 866-963-2037. 866-963-2037. More Stacy on the right after the break.
This is Uncommon Moments. Here's former Super Bowl winning NFL coach Tony Dungy and his wife Lauren sharing from their book Uncommon Marriage.
Just because we attempt to follow the roles that we believe God has established for husbands and wives doesn't mean we let tradition define who does what in our household. There are some things that Tony is more gifted at doing and other things that I feel I'm better equipped at. The key is working together to ensure we're each handling those things we do best.
It's a pretty simple concept, but not everyone understands the principle. Rather than holding on to rigid, defined roles of the husband does this and the wife does that, we've learned to be a helpmate to each other and work as a team.
Tony and Lauren Dungy, authors of Uncommon Marriage, learning about lasting love and overcoming life's obstacles together. Discover more at CoachDungy.com.
This is Just a Minute with Stacy Washington. The Constitution gives the federal government a mandate to, quote, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, end quote. House Speaker Pelosi is pushing for the passage of her latest government overreach project, the Equality Act, which would make gender identity and sexual orientation protected classes. Passing this bill would open a veritable Pandora's box of compelled speech, financially catastrophic financial penalties, and shut down faith-based charities that refuse to bow to this latest form of government coercion. Think of Jack Phillips, Memories Pizza, and other small business owners who have been ruined or financially depleted by the refusal to bow down to the LGBT agenda. This bill would make those actions routine and inescapable. It's interesting that of all the truly crisis-level problems facing America right now, Speaker Pelosi chooses to waste time on this. I'm Stacy Washington. Find out more at stacyontheright.com.
This is House Call for Health. If you're middle-aged and you don't exercise, you've probably said something like, I've been like this for years, no point in changing now. Well, a new study says you're wrong about that. The study tracked exercise patterns of more than 300,000 AARP members. It found that people who got regular physical activity were 36% less likely to die early compared to couch potatoes. And researchers were surprised to find that people who were inactive when they were young but began an exercise schedule in their 40s and 50s also had a sharp decline in the risk of early death by 35%. Researchers found a risk decline in both heart disease and cancer. The study in the online journal JAMA Network Open says it's never too late to start moving, but it also says young people should not use this as an excuse to sit still until they get older. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Anna Wells, Fox News.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
About 80% of American kids consider themselves as just plain old Americans before they enter high school, and about two-thirds of them, about halfway through college, become hyphenated Americans. We remove those hyphens in the Army, in the military. You're a soldier. Next question. We all wear the same patch on our right shoulder, the American flag, and that's what it's all about. And that's a process that most armies do not really go through. You probably don't have to go through it in some armies where everybody is monolinguistic, monoethnic, or whatever, Finland or someplace like that. But in the United States, we do. They should go through it in Arab armies, but they don't. And that's a significant difference. Is it getting harder in the U.S. military to assimilate everybody and get everybody on the same plane for the same team? Yeah, it is. Identity politics is a cancer. And an army is a reflection of its society. And we have seen what Balkanization looks like. I've been in the Balkans multiple times, and in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it's a dangerous path that we're moving along. And eventually, it's going to become too hard for us to fix.
Do you hear what he's saying? So remember, we have an all-volunteer military service. And welcome back to the show. If you want to call in to join us right now during this segment, it's 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. That was Lieutenant General McFarland talking about identity politics. And if you listen to what he just said, all volunteer military, and when people come in, normally the things that I'll just go by what I remember going into basic training. What I noticed was that growing up in Germany, I was always the one that my friends would tease. I talk proper. I talk like a white person, you know, and that was just pure ignorance. But that was a lot of what the teasing that I would get, because when my parents went over to Germany, my dad was stationed in Germany, and we went there from Fort Myers in DC. So we get over there, and I'm like, I don't know, 8 years old. And I grew up, I was born, my dad was already in the military. So I was born on a military base, and I went to school from kindergarten through high school on a military basis. And so I was always like, wherever we were was home, as opposed to kids who had a home and grew up in a neighborhood and then moved with their parents for the first time to a military base and had to assimilate to that. It was the opposite for me. And I did that after I graduated from high school and went to a couple years of college. And then the college experience was the only assimilation into the civilian world that I really had, a time where I was in the civilian area. I still had a military ID card as a dependent. And then I joined the Air Force. So it's different because you don't have an accent that reflects where you grew up, because I grew up on military bases. So it was one of the things that I noticed when I went to basic training was just, there were so many people there who had like deep South accents, people who had like a California accent. There were very few of them, but there were people who had, you know, clearly they came from California, and also reflects the time frame. And so I you know, it's one of those things where the biggest deal for us was kind of just deciphering what the deep South people were saying and kind of laughing with the New Yorkers, like anybody who came from New York State with that accent, that Northeastern accent. We would just want to hear them talk, because that was an accent that I didn't know very many people with an accent like that. I had not encountered that. But most of us, it wasn't an issue of, you know, black, white, anything like that. We were all kind of the mindset that we were the pukes, you know, the underlings. We were basic trainees, and everybody there seemed to be there so they could break us. Like every person who had any rank at all was there to break us. And so we were unified and all wearing the same uniform, all sleeping in the same communal dorm, open bunks next to each other with a little, like a closet thing in between, no privacy whatsoever, group showers, eating together, sleeping together, getting told to do push-ups together, doing bird poop duty. They had some overhang outside of a building, and birds would roost in the overhang, and then you'd have to clean bird poop. And that was something that when you were on that rotation, you had to do that every day for a week. It was a part of your duty. Every morning you had to do that for like 3 hours. When you're on buffer duty, you had to do floors. When it was your turn to do that, that's what you did all evening, you know, or sometimes they'd let you do it earlier in the day, but usually that was right before bed. You'd have to go and buff all of the floors on the area that you were assigned. These things were to make us a part of a team. If you saw someone who couldn't get their job done or was hurting and unable to do it, you would pick up the slack for them, because if something was left undone, everyone got in trouble at the same time. So there was zero balkanization when I went in, but obviously, you know, I'm not in my 20s or my 30s, right? So this was some time ago. I hadn't been told in high school that I was a victim or that black people were victims. I hadn't been told that, you know, white people were the oppressors. Really, I had been told actually in high school, because I went to Department of Defense schools, I was told that, you know, on this military base, every person you see walking, whether they're wearing a uniform or not, is supporting the mission of the United States. And so in that, we are all unified. We are also all Americans. And if you see someone on base who might be a German national or someone from another country who's working as a contractor on the base, they're also working to support the mission. So regardless of their, you know, actual background, they would be a part of the team as well. And so and obviously I was raised on military installations. So that's what I was told by teachers. And, you know, if we had the off teacher who was a little bit weird and socialist or Marxist, they were the teacher that everybody hated, even the other teachers. And they were kind of ostracized. And those teachers would usually rotate back to the States and not keep teaching. So it's just weird that, he's talking about that now. But then again, it's not weird, is it? It's not weird that he's saying that that the U.S. military is now having to face basically deprogramming these kids so that they understand that, you know what? So you're black, so what? So you have a permanent tan, so what? So you're white, so what? So you're Hispanic, so what? You're here to do a job. And your primary mission is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and all other duties as assigned. What else? What else have you got? If you just get that up in you, the rest of it can fall to the wayside, right? So it's just interesting that he would say that. And this isn't a political guy. He is, he's a military general. He's in charge of thousands of troops. He's responsible for them, not just as military assets, but as people that he cares about, that he wants to make decisions that ensure their safety, but also ensure that they can perform the mission. So let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Jacob in Alabama. Hey, Jacob, thank you for calling the show today.
How you feel, my sister?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Good. It get any better, I wouldn't be able to stand it.
What's your comment today?
Yeah, I think with your situation on the border, you mentioned this a few months back. See, God is using you prophetically as well. You need a military installation on the border that'll take care of MS-13 because they're terrorists. It'll take care of everything. And once you do that, this thing will stop. It won't be blowing up the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, and if they do it, that's all they have to do. But the fact is, whatever we do, we have to get ready to come together as a country until the Lord returns. This can't be like, okay, next year, like 2001 with and we go right back to being the same thing. This has to be a commitment to defending this country, to supporting the president, because the way they talk about the president is disgraceful.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I want to say, Jacob, thank you for calling the show. I want to say when Jacob just mentioned just then, I want to reiterate what he just said. Obviously, we care about what's happening at the border. We care about we care about our laws being followed, and we care about the politicians that are supposed to represent us following the law and being, representing us well. And that to me means they have to have some kind of godly influence, and some of them do, and many of them don't. But he also said something about being prepared for when Jesus comes. And that is no joke. We have to be prepared. So, obviously we want to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, but we want to make sure our hearts are ready for that eventuality, which means, first of all, we have to be saved. You have to join the club, get at the buffet, partake. You have to be saved, and then you have to be living for Jesus Christ. Just being saved isn't enough when you're talking about maintaining and growing in Jesus Christ. It's a process by which we are sanctified, and we need to make sure that we're on that process and that we're actively participating. George in Oklahoma, thank you for calling the show today. Hey, George. Thanks for calling the show today.
Hello.
Hi. I can hear you. Thanks for calling the show, George.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't hear you. I heard a crash there. Anyway, I was just, I heard that the detention center didn't have enough room, that they were turning away the aliens because they didn't have any way to keep them. And I was just wondering, did anyone remember that when the president, after the shutdown, that the Democrats lowered the number of beds so there wouldn't be any room?
Yeah, that was a part. That was inside that bill. Yeah, they lowered it by like 9,000.
And so they were talking about how they didn't have any room to turn away, and it was the Democrats who put that in there. So that would be the result, and it's happening. But I was surprised that nobody mentioned that, because they were talking about they had to turn them away because they didn't have anywhere to keep them. But the Democrats is the one who was responsible for putting that, during the shutdown.
Great catch. Fantastic. George, thank you for pointing that out. So what he's referring to is in this most recent bill after the shutdown, the bill that the president signed that all of us were so hopping mad about, had this provision in there where they basically had these beds. The number of beds that they were maintaining was lowered. So that is what he's talking about. And so you see the busloads of people being dropped off in American cities. Thank a Democrat. When you see one, say, oh, yeah, thanks for making sure that we have more illegal aliens running around the country. We appreciate you. You know, you just doing a fantastic bang-up job of destroying America and making lawlessness the rule of the way we go here. Kenny in Oklahoma, thank you for calling the show today.
Hello,
Hey.
Stacy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks
Hey,
for calling.
Stacy. Okay, Stacy, thank you for your program. Abraham Hamilton here a week or so ago told us that the National Education Association, which practically runs the schools for the most part, are indoctrinating the little small children with the transgender perversion. May I ask in all sincerity, can we get together, us evangelicals who care about our country and care about our children? Can we find some politicians on the national level, on the federal level, on the state level that will try to pass legislation to make it illegal for our little bitty children to be indoctrinated by this homosexual transgender movement?
Okay, Kenny, fantastic idea.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm going to say this to parents, and I say this in all sincerity as a mom. I remember when my kids were really small. It's the reason why I volunteered. So I know for some moms, you're working every day and you can't do this. And so this is no condemnation. But for moms who are staying home, the burden is upon us. When we stay home and we're taking care of our kids at home, even if you have small ones at home, that means you're in the building. That means you're volunteering. You're on the copy committee. One of the best places to find out what's going on in a school is to be on the copy committee, because you get every piece of paper that whatever teachers are using that copier, you're making the copies. So you get to look at every piece of paper. The paper that doesn't come home in your kid's backpack, you get to look at it because you make 24 copies for that class, 20 for that one, 19 for that one. You make all the copies and you spend about 2 hours once a week working on that. You'll also be on the copy committee, which means a bunch of other moms will be working it with you. So they'll be there maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and you might do 1 2-hour shift. That's where you're supposed to be. If you're listening to this show right now, you didn't hear me say that by accident. If you're a stay-at-home mom, or you have a flexible position where you have time to volunteer at your kid's school during the week, 1 hour, 2 hours a week, the copy committee is where you need to be. Now, you're saying, well, I'm on the copy committee. I don't control what they do. But you can say, I'm sorry, why am I making 20 copies of this transgender thing for kindergarten class? And the teacher will say, oh, well, our curriculum for development is, and you could say, first I'm discussing this with you. The chain of command stands. I have to talk to you about it as a teacher. My child will not be looking at this, and nor will any kid in this class. You stand your ground. You have your holy righteous indignation. You keep your tone non-threatening, but you let that teacher know they're now on notice. They better not ever slide a piece of paper with this stuff on it to your kid again. And then you go to the principal and you tell them the same thing. And then you show up at the school board meeting with your copy and you say, this is what I was told to copy for my children's class, or for a class in my children's elementary school, and there's no way I'm ever going to let it fly. So all of you will be voted out, because me and my 4,000 mom friends will make sure you never get elected again if I ever see something like this cross the copy committee again. And if you try to throw me off the copy committee, you're going to pay for that too. It's time for Christians to stand up. If we're not standing up, they're going to stand up and roll right over our kids and send them all on the path to hell. It's your job to stop it. These elected officials can't do what you can do in a classroom, in the building, on the copy committee. Moms, stand up. Annas, rise up. Let's get this done. We'll be back with more after the break. God bless if you're leaving us now.
Family Talk.
Urban Family Talk is that alternative radio network because we choose to infuse Jesus in everything we do.
We count it a blessing to be able to speak with integrity and to speak honestly on the issues.
Thank you for joining us, partnering with us, being a part of
Urban Family Talk.
Urban Family Talk.
Urban Family Talk.
Urban family talk so that we can stand for the gospel.
Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. President Trump has announced an executive order involving campus free speech. It comes after numerous cases and/or claims involving conservative speech being restricted on campuses. The president wants public colleges and universities to allow campus free speech or face a loss of federal funds. Spencer Brown of Young America's Foundation.
We're really excited to see the president from his office taking an interest in what has seemed to be a crisis on campus for a number of years. You know, we've been working for decades to support the First Amendment and other constitutional rights of students. And so to see him sort of taking notice of that is a big, I think, boon for our students, especially who often feel like they're alone on these liberal campuses.
Representatives with Young America's Foundation were on hand for the announcement, as were 3 clients represented by Alliance Defending Freedom. Reiterating his goal of making Mississippi the safest place in America for an unborn child, Governor Phil Bryant has signed a heartbeat bill into law. The governor later spoke to AFR's Focal Point with Brian Fisher program.
I'm just so proud to be here and proud to have been able to sign into law Senate Bill 2116 today, which is called Our Heartbeat Bill here in Mississippi. And so it prohibits abortion upon a detectable fetal heartbeat, except for medical emergencies that would threaten the life of the mother. We understand it's going to be challenged by the left, and their lawyers have been lined up, I'm sure, for weeks now with all the money they're able to raise to attack those of us that are defending the innocent life of an unborn child. And we're willing to stand in that gap and take that type of criticism or pressure, whatever they want to bring, because of our strong and heartfelt belief that those innocent children need protection.
More on the heartbeat bill and other pro-life news at onenewsnow.com. Flooding continues to threaten hundreds of homes in the Midwest. Jeff Manasso has more.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says 200 miles of levees are compromised with record flood levels at 42 locations in 6 states. This amid new rounds of evacuations.
By end of tonight, it'll be in our homes, and I don't want it.
This is my 3rd time out, but I think this is going to be the worst.
They're in Craig, Missouri. Dozens of counties in both Nebraska and Iowa along the Missouri River declaring emergencies, with hundreds of structures taking on water and damage that's expected to be in the billions as water continues to rise also in several southern states along the lower Mississippi. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
More and more people are willing to choose cosmetic surgery. Fox's Joy Piazza explains in today's House Call for Health.
The American Society of Plastic Surgeons says cosmetic procedures have been on the rise for the past 5 years. Last year, there were nearly 18 million cosmetic surgeries, and that doesn't include plastic surgery reconstructions after an accident or disease. The most common procedure was breast augmentation. Other popular procedures are liposuction, nose reshaping, eyelid surgery, and tummy tucks. Low self-esteem has ranked as a top motivation, as well as low life satisfaction, a high degree of media exposure, and a low amount of religious beliefs. House Call for Health, I'm Joy Piazza, Fox News.
Comcast is launching an aggregated bundle of existing streaming TV apps for $5 a month. The new service, called Flex, brings together apps customers already pay for, like Netflix, Amazon's Prime Video or HBO, and free services like YouTube, Pluto, and Tubi, letting them search for TV shows and movies across the different services. While all those apps are already available through Roku or other platforms, Comcast hopes customers will pay for its version, which comes with a 4K HDR box and a voice remote. In final news this hour, spring brings higher gasoline demand. AAA has the national average for a gallon of regular at $2.59. That's up 20 cents from this time last month, but it's the same amount as this day last year. Find more news at onenewsnow.com.
There are many ways you can listen to the shows of Urban Family Talk. One of those ways is through our very own app. Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, just go to the App Store and search for Urban Family Talk. You'll have immediate access to 24-hour programming as well as the podcast for each show. You'll be able to tune in no matter where you are. Speaking of tuning in, we have our own channel on another radio app called Tune In. Cool, right? Urban Family Talk is everywhere. Just download the app and take us wherever you go.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The results are there. Income growth for the bottom decile, the bottom 10% of the population, it's 6.5%. Since the president was elected, we've created 56,000 auto jobs in America. And so everything has lifted off, and our view is it's just going to continue.
These immigrants, when immigrants come here with their hopes and dreams and aspiration and determination to make the future better for their families, that optimism, that courage, their American traits, and all of these immigrants make America more American.
I am always optimistic, but now it's just vital. Congress must act. The president has made this a priority, continues to make it a priority in every way he possibly can exercise his authority. But look, this is Congress, courts, and criminals. That's who we got to fix.
And now, Stacy Washington.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here. In hour 2, we're going to chat with Seton Motley, the founder of Less Government. We are also going to be continuing our conversations around a number of different topics. Interesting. More than a third of New Yorkers say they can't afford to live in New York, and the 2 huge makeup companies. So I'm going to give you that info right now. Actually, we have callers. So let me just quickly give you the 2 makeup companies that are planning to donate to Planned Parenthood. They're doing an actual campaign, and they're being very open about it, are MAC Cosmetics, and Benefit. Now, this is really, honestly, it's a personal choice. If you don't want to give up your MAC Cosmetics or your Benefit Cosmetics, don't look, it's up to you. You do you. But I'm not gonna frequent these places anymore. There's so much makeup out there. You know what is shocking to me is sometimes I'll stumble onto one of these kind of makeup gurus, they're influencers on YouTube, and I'll watch a few of their videos. And I notice a lot of them they're not using these mainstream makeup companies. They're using brands that you can find at Ulta or Sephora, and they're not really huge brands, but they have some component to it that the makeup person likes. Like it goes on smoother, it goes on easier, whatever. And I know for a lot of people, they're like, I don't wear any makeup. And you know what? God bless you. Those good genes, that perfect skin, all that. I want to have some of that. If you can squeeze some of it out of your pinky and give it to me, I'd be awesome. But for those of us who do wear makeup, we have to start being careful. It's just like we don't go to Target anymore. Just like we're thinking we probably won't be going to Walmart anymore here in a minute. If they don't come to their senses, those of us who want to do that, I just want you to be aware. We're talking about MAC Cosmetics and Benefit. MAC Cosmetics has already given $1.6 million to Planned Parenthood since 2008, according to Forbes. And Planned Parenthood aborts 330,000 babies a year. They're the largest single abortuary in the United States. We have an abortion rate of about 958,000. So just shy of 1 million. And that is per the Guttmacher Institute. Those numbers, I believe, were for 2016. We should be getting the 2017 reportable year statistics coming in pretty soon. So the abortions are down. The number of abortions per year in this country are down, but Planned Parenthood's number of abortions is actually up by 11%. So we don't want to fund them in any way. If we can get away from funding them in our private lives, it can help offset the fact that we're forced to support them through our taxpayer dollars by our government. So let's go back to the phones. I love it when people hold over. James in Indiana, thanks for calling the show today.
Hello.
Hey. What's your comment?
This is James.
Yeah. What's your comment today?
I'm a veteran, Army veteran from 73 to 77.
Awesome. Thank you for your service. Army. Awesome. Thank you.
That's the time when they were changing over from draft-based Army to a volunteer. And I think we've created a fantastic military force, but I do believe we should still have the draft. I think citizens in this country need to have a little skin in the game. Mm-hmm. and at a draft to fill in the say what's the demand when we are in conflict, and we seem to have trouble maintaining the number of troops we need to for support troops and so forth. So I think we do need a draft system to, like I say, have the citizens more involved with for what this country's involved with in other countries. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening, and I tend to have a different view. I think the all volunteer service is more effective.
Yes, it is.
Just because the people who are there want to be there. I think when we had the draft and it's been a wartime situation, people were happy to step up, and ones who weren't happy to step up used, deferments, or they used their connections or what have you, religious exemptions, and they didn't go in, which we're better off when people use those exemptions and don't go in, because you don't want someone reluctantly by you. So thank you, James.
I volunteered for.
Oh,
okay.
Sure. No, you volunteered for. Please, I didn't want to cut you off.
I volunteered for service. I wasn't drafted.
Yeah.
No, I just feel that yes, we have the best military force ever. I'm just saying that for the citizens of this country, that they need to have a little skin in the game too. Because at that time, and still, I hear that where people don't really appreciate the people in uniform.
Yeah.
And like I said, I got a lot of that.
That sentiment is widely expressed nowadays. Absolutely. Thank you, James, for calling the show. I want to say, just in response to what he was saying, so it is widely known, especially if you live in an area that doesn't have a military base. People tend to have a view of the military as in you couldn't make it in high school, so you go in the military, or you're not college material, so you go in the military. But the fact is, a lot of people who are in the military go in intentionally because they want to serve their country, and they want the training and the benefits, and they want to have that experience under their belt. They want to go into an environment where they're out of their comfort zone, and they want to prove to themselves that they can withstand it. And so it is good to have people all volunteer. I think what we're going to end up seeing is kind of a hybrid of that, because military recruiters for the past 10 years have been reporting that they used to be able to just go to a high school, set up a table, and they'd have enough people who would be willing to join the military, and those people, the ones who wanted to join, would pass the test because they were physically fit and they had the mental aptitude to pass the ASVAB or, what have you, the military test. Nowadays, they have people who want to get in, but they're too fat to pass the test. Their body weight and their BMI do not match the standard, and so they're told, you got to go lose some weight and come back. And often they don't come back. So there's that, and then there's the lack of mental capital, where they're literally going to high schools and kids are saying, yeah, I want to join. They take the test and they can't meet the bare minimum to be a cook or bottle washer in the military. Literally cannot get into the military because they haven't learned enough in high school. So we might end up with a hybrid where we're drafting some people because we just can't get enough able bodies. A lot of health doctors who speak about the health of our country as it pertains to weight and physical fitness, they've said if you take the people out who are on some kind of like something to help with autism, something to help with mental stability, anxiety drugs, if you take all those people out of the population, that's like a third of all Americans are taking something for that. You take all those out, and then what you have left is a bunch of people. Some are physically fit, but a lot of the people who are left are also, they're obese, they're too fat to get in the military. They're saying we are actually going to quickly approach a time where we have a crisis where we can't get enough people to join the military. It's pretty amazing that would be the situation. Bill in West Virginia, thank you for calling the show today. Hey, Bill, thanks for calling the show.
Sorry. Yes, I'd like to make two comments if I can, Stacy. I was going to make a comment on abortion. Sure. I'd like to make a comment on what you were just talking about, the draft. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 1963, and if I was trying to get a good job, I couldn't do it because I was A1 on the draft, okay? The draft, to me, was a good thing because even people who had no plans of going in the military, when they went in the military instills something upon a person that you will get no place else. Mm-hmm. And you usually wind up carrying that with you for the rest of your life through your career. So it builds a lot of good character. And I remember one of the statistics when I got out, they said the people that made careers most of the time were not people that enlisted, but people that were drafted and found out how much they really loved it. So, I think for all of I think this world, this country we live in today, would be a different country if they still had the draft. There'd be a whole lot more young people walking around with pride for themselves and the country than what they do right now.
Okay, so Bill, that's a great comment. And I want to, you piqued my interest there because you mentioned that people were drafted in. My dad was actually drafted in. He was in college, and then he made some bad grades, and he was out for one semester, and he got drafted in to go to Vietnam. And then after that, he did the same thing you just described. He made a career out of it. And because he was in the military, I ended up growing up in Germany, me and my sister both. My sister was born in Panama, of all places. And both of us are different than if he'd stayed in this small town in the South that he grew up in and maybe worked at the factory. And me and my sister, because he dated my mom since high school, so they probably still would have been married. We'd end up living in Tennessee or Kentucky and completely different lives than what we ended up having. And so the point that you're making is well taken. And I think sometimes the thing that we think won't be good for us, you just made some points, very strong points as to why it could be very good for America. Because right now we have a lot of people running around this country who not only do not appreciate the military, they don't appreciate this country and they don't know anything about it. And you learn a lot about America when you join the military, whether you're drafted or not. And so that's a good point.
Well, I just want to make one more. I didn't stay in the military. I was in for 5 years in the Air Force. I went to Vietnam, 67, 68. But when I got out, I tried to get a job with the phone. Well, before I went in, I tried to get a job. I could not because they wanted to draft. But when I got out, I was hired by AT&T, and what did it for me, I was competing. I did not have college. There was 14 people there for 4 jobs. 3 of us didn't have college. I thought, well, I might as well leave. And when I was getting ready to leave, the man who was interviewing from New York said, "Step outside with me, young man. Before we left New York, we knew you had the job because of your Air Force record." So it does, whether you stay in the military or you don't stay in the military, it builds character in people. And okay, so I'd like to make a comment on abortion if I could.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. I was listening before about the heartbeat. I go a little bit. I go to Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Okay? And before thou comest forth out of the belly, out of the womb, I sanctified thee. Isn't that true for all of us?
It is true.
Wouldn't that be before the heart? That's at conception. And I think that's what we as Christians should be putting forth more than heartbeat. It should be conception.
It should be. But I think people are trying to, I think all of the people who are pro-life are trying to come at this from an incremental standpoint, as in, first, let's get it from the heartbeat. That's something that it's catchy. It has the heartbeat bill. It's something that people remember. And something with a heartbeat, if you're stopping a heartbeat, you're killing something. So they're trying to go incrementally. I agree with you. It's from conception to natural death that we are not supposed to touch God's anointed. And he's clear about who the anointed is. It's anyone who's been formed by him. He knows us before the deeps. Before he formed the deeps of the earth, he knew all of us, every single one of us, which means from the moment we're conceived, he knits us together in our mother's womb. That's him doing that work. So I agree with you, but I think what I've learned from being in the pro-life movement and listening and sitting at the feet of I consider these women to be my spiritual mothers, where they're women who have more experience than I have, and they've been in the fight longer than I have, and they have told me, we all of us in the pro-life movement are from conception to natural death, but there are others out there, partners, who are trying to get. It's like, how do you win a war? Well, you don't win by taking everything at the same time. A war is won by taking the hill that you're on, and then you rush in and take the next hill, and you might suffer some losses, but you're trying to take as much as you can when you can. And I think that's what the heartbeat bills and other legislation like that are trying to do. Super important for us to support it, but to always pray and work for the ultimate, which is no abortion at all legally. All right. We'll have Seton Motley, the founder of Less Government, when we get back. Keep it here.
Here's American Family Association President Tim Wildman.
Lynn Ingram and Jim Duncan, two Texans, support and believe in our ministry here at AFA and AFR.
We know more about the laundry business than anything else. We know a little bit about a lot of things, but we know a lot about the laundry and dry cleaning business.
They created a laundry detergent to sell to folks to support AFA.
We just want to be able to provide a product that can be used by AFA to support the ministry.
When you wash your family's clothes with Redeem Clean laundry detergent, you can take great satisfaction in knowing that you're supporting the vital work of the American Family Association. It's a unique way to increase your giving to AFA. For clean laundry and support of a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Learn more about the Redeem Clean products when you visit redeemclean.afastore.net.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
We're a divided country, but it may be worse than we imagined. An article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences discussed what is called motive attribution asymmetry. That's a technical term for the assumption that your ideology is based in love and your opponent's is based on hate. Put another way, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. They discovered that the average Republican and the average Democrat today are as divided as the Palestinians and Israelis. In his op-ed in the New York Times, Arthur Brooks says we see the other side as an enemy with whom one cannot negotiate or compromise. He comes to this startling conclusion. People often say that our problem in America is incivility or intolerance. He says that's incorrect. Motive attribution asymmetry leads to something far worse, contempt, which is a noxious brew of anger and disgust. And it is made worse by what he calls the outrage industrial complex that oftentimes caters to one side and criticizes the other. Now, when people hear about political conflicts, they often prescribe the wrong solutions. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we should put aside our disagreements. Arthur Brooks instead says that we need not disagree less. Instead, we need to disagree better. Whether we're discussing politics, economics, or philosophy, we should engage in a robust competition of ideas. We can disagree without being so disagreeable. So he suggests 2 steps. First, turn away from what he calls the rhetorical dope peddlers. These are powerful people on your side who are profiting from the culture of contempt. Second, make a commitment never to treat others with contempt. Christians should be civil and gracious. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Socialism, go to viewpoints.info/socialism. That's viewpoints.info/socialism.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. It's my pleasure to be with you today. And I had to say, it's amazing to me how I can be so, like, some days, let's just be real here for 5 seconds. Some days I'm so low energy. I'm like, what's wrong with me? And then I come in here into the little home studio. This room is not huge. It's like a little room here at our home. And it was like an office before I started doing this show from home for Urban Family Talk. And so I come in here and I sit down, I turn on all the lights. And, you know, I've already got my show sheet done and all that stuff. But I mean, coming in to actually sit down. And when I sit down, all of a sudden I have energy. But like 2 or 3 hours ago, I was literally dragging around like, oh, you know, the Laclede, or they're not Laclede Gas anymore, but the gas company sent some guy over here and he was roaming around our house and the dog was barking. He was outside. And I was like, why is the dog barking? And then he called and I'm like, I said, are you here? He said, yes, I'm looking for your meter. And he said, is it under your deck? I said, no, it isn't. the mean, like, rears up part of me was like, don't tell him where it is. And then the other part of me was like, but if he keeps roaming around here, like, I don't know what he looks like. I don't know who this man is. Why is he roaming around? And why does his number say he's calling from New Jersey, right? Because he was using a cell phone. And so he's trying to get me to tell him where it is. And I'm like, well, it's not easy for me to tell you where it is because it's actually hidden. And it's not, we didn't do it. It's the way it was when we bought the house. And so we're going around, you know, like he and I are going back and forth. I'm like, I will be to you in 10 minutes because I had all my workout stuff and I just didn't want to come downstairs looking all crazy, you know, with a scarf on. So I was like, I had to get myself together. So I quickly, you know, made myself presentable and went outside and his car is running in the driveway, but he's not in there. So I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. You know what? Because this guy, he's driving the utility van truck. I was like, Lord, be with me because I don't want to have to go berserker on this dude. He's roaming around our property. And so it worked out fine, you know, no harm, no foul. But it was just one of those days where I'd been feeling like literally dragging myself around. And then that happened. And then after he left, he wasn't here long. Then I started feeling like really draggy again. And then I came in here and I sat down. I'm like, oh, I've got some energy now. So weird, you know, just more tales from Stacy on the right. Okay, I think, so now we're talking to Seton Motley, founder of Less Government. I'm not sure if he's ready with us. Seton, are you with us?
Yes.
Ah, awesome. Perfect. So you, sir, have more information out at your website. Give us the website for Less Government where people can find this.
Lessgovernment.org. You can actually sign up for, you can call it a newsletter or whatever. I just send it an email whenever I write something. And unlike Google, I won't sell your data.
Seton's awesome. If you get his newsletter, I get it. What happens is you get this, like, it's full of links, it's full of information, and it's not so long that you're like, oh, but it's not so short that you're like, what did I just get to? It's a great newsletter. You should get it. Sign up for that.
Thank you.
Now, listen, what you're talking about now is it has to do with internet access. Tell the people why I saw the email and I was like, you have to come on. Tell them.
When did you email me? Yesterday. You emailed me Tuesday, right?
No, yesterday. I wanted you to come on yesterday, but you didn't have time because
you wanted to come on
popular.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I've written 4 articles this week. I'm blanking on which one you responded to. I apologize.
Oh, so it's the internet access, more internet access and freedom on the internet. Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up.
I apologize.
I know.
It's been a crazy week.
All I put down was
well, we've got this stupid net neutrality thing happening again. Is that?
No, I put in more internet access. Yes, I think that's net neutrality.
Well, what these idiots are doing, you know, I've written to me, the greatest problem in D.C. right now is gerrymandering. We've spent the last 50 years rendering 400 of the 435 House seats irrelevant in the general election. There's 60% Democrat or 60% Republican. And so the primaries are what matter. And, you know, I was running Texas Club for Growth, and we got involved in Northeast Texas 1 in 2004. And you go listen to 7 guys and women standing next to each other going, I'm more conservative than they are. I'm more conservative than they are. Same thing on the left. You know, a Democrat's never going, a Republican's never going to win Nancy Pelosi's seat the way it's drawn. It's just not going to happen. And by the way, term limits don't fix this. All you do is replace an old Nancy Pelosi with a young Nancy Pelosi. The problem is ideology, and we don't have competitive elections in the general. So that's why we've become this hard line in D.C. Now we don't have Congress that legislates anymore. We have Congress that engages in legislation theater. And rather than putting forward legislation that recognizes that there's a Democrat House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president, you got Nancy Pelosi putting forth stuff that has no chance of passing but looks good to their radical base. And anybody who compromises in any way takes one step towards the other party is going to get primaried and lose the next election. So the Republicans, despite all this, you got net neutrality, which is a stupid policy. It was originally bipartisan in the mid-2000s. It had 4 principles. You won't get blocked, you won't get throttled, slowed down, and everybody agreed to it because the ISPs weren't doing that. The Internet Service Providers, Comcast, everybody, they weren't doing it. So it was just kind of this general agreement that everyone agreed to. Well, now, of course, the left has used that as a rubric, as a Trojan horse, to basically apply 1934 landline phone law to the Internet. That's what Obama did in 2015. That's what Trump just undid in 2017. And so now we've got Republicans who don't want any regulation because we know that the Internet has become a free speech, free market Xanadu with 0 regulations in place. It's been a phenomenal success, probably the most successful endeavor in the history of humanity. So we want no regulation. The Democrats want this draconian Title II landline phone law imposition on the Internet. Well, the Republicans in the House have put forward 3 bills that say, okay, we don't want anything, but we'll put in law these 4 principles to which everybody agreed a decade ago. That's an actual compromise in a divided Washington that makes sense. Do any Democrats get on any of those bills? The answer is no. They're going to release a bill next month in April that basically reinstates what Obama did in 2015. Now, let's analyze this from a reality standpoint. Okay, they can jam it through the House on a party line vote, right? Mitch McConnell will never touch this bill in the Senate. And even if Mitch McConnell falls on his head and a gaggle of the majority Republicans all fall on their head in the Senate and this magically, mysteriously passes the Senate, Donald Trump is not going to sign a bill that reinstates what he just undid. So that's what's going on in the Congress. And the reason you need legislation is because otherwise you have what just happened twice in the last 2 years. You have unilateral fiats by executive branch agencies where Barack Obama executes a unilateral massive power grab on the Internet, and then 2 years later, Trump comes in and restores Internet freedom the way it has been for its entire existence. And, of course, what's the word everybody hates on Wall Street? Uncertainty. Well, this is regulatory uncertainty on stilts. You don't know what's going to happen if the agencies are acting unilaterally. So we want this law to pass so we can hopefully finally, although I doubt it, I'm highly dubious, at least put these 4 tenets in law, and that way there's a law on net neutrality specifically, which you would hope would prescribe future agency action above and beyond the boundaries of the existing law, which is, by the way, where agencies are supposed to solely exist, is within the confines of existing law.
Okay, so you totally just completely covered that, and I'm exhausted by it, Seton. Like, I'm so tired of this. First of all, the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi with the control of the House, and I actually asked this question on Al Sharpton's show, and the panel got mad at me, but I was trying to figure out, you know, what do the Democrats plan on doing with control of the House that will help Americans? Not what do you plan on doing, investigating Republicans, investigating Donald Trump? I get that. Proposing bills that don't make any sense, bringing up a whole lot of nonsense, nincompoopery, and trying to pass that, knowing that the president will never sign it. I get it. But what do y'all plan to do about the opioid epidemic, or the supporting the president, or maybe proposing something different than what the president wants to do on his negotiations with North Korea, things we're doing in the Middle East? I mean, we have some problems. It's not like we're problem free and they have time to just piddle around with the internet, but that's not what they're doing. And so, again, I encourage listeners to get
on a platform of DC has screwed stuff up for half a century, and we need to start fixing this stuff.
And he is fixing it. I mean, he's really doing a good job with what he can do.
The Democrats need to acknowledge that that's how he won, and they're, like you said, they're pretending like there's nothing wrong, and they have all this free time to do all this nonsense.
Which they don't, but they're not going to stop that. Now, I want to pivot over to, in our last, we have 4 minutes left. You have this other piece, government crony Amazons, very many victims are finally pushing back. And you call them the they sell everything company Amazon with a market capitalization of $865 billion, and you call them a monster company. And I want people to hear this because, like me, I've reduced the number of items I get on my automatic, pantry thing from Amazon, but I still do get some from them. Every one of us has some interaction with Amazon. It's almost impossible not to. So what are you talking about here in this piece?
Okay, what's going on is of course, government is so huge that government contracts become a bigger and bigger deal. What Amazon has been doing, okay, you got 4 minutes. They basically cheated, corruptly hardwired a $10 billion Defense Department contract to be the sole provider of cloud backup services for the entire Defense Department. When it started out, it was going to be multiple providers, which, as you probably know, makes sense, rather than having one provider, because if the one provider goes down, you're offline. Well, the Obama administration went and hired a guy from Amazon Web Services to run the department that hires technology contractors in the Defense Department. He immediately changed the contract from multiple providers to one, and then wrote the contract in such a way that only Amazon qualified. So we started highlighting this. The Trump administration said, wait a minute, this stinks. And this guy, his name is Deep Ubi, believe it or not, Deep Ubi, so D-E-A-P. But anyway, he said, I recuse myself. Well, he's already rigged it. What do you mean you recuse yourself? And then literally 2 weeks after he recuses himself, he quits the Defense Department and goes back to work for Amazon Web Services. So this whole thing is corrupt. We're trying to get it to be start the bidding process over again and exclude Amazon for being a corrupt bunch of jerks. But anyway, even bigger than that, there's an entire government-wide bid for retail purchases, which means every post-it commerce buys, every folder EPA buys, every pen that the HHS buys is going to be contracted out. Well, guess who's hardwired into the lead for that $50 billion deal? Amazon.
Oh, jeez.
So what I'm saying is these guys, the reason I started that piece, the first Uber everything company, basically every company in America should stand up and protest and fight this because they're all going to be beat out by Amazon. And that's why I keep quoting their market cap. Every time I write about these companies, I look up their market cap to show you. These guys are bigger by far than the robber barons we've read about in history, Vanderbilt and Rockefeller and Carnegie and all these guys. They were nothing compared to these people. You're talking about $1 trillion company who, by the way, also has the added advantage of exponentially larger government to rig and crony up that Rockefeller and Carnegie and Mellon didn't have. They had little tiny governments. Sure, they could bribe them, but it didn't matter because the governments were insignificantly small. These governments are huge, and these giant companies are cronying up with them, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, both from you saw it with Amazon getting billions of dollars of our money thrown at them to locate their headquarters, to then getting, Amazon gets $1.47 off every package it sends through the post office, to all these crony contracts they keep getting.
I knew you could do it. I knew you could cover it in less than 4 minutes. So Seton, I'm going to encourage people again, go to lessgovernment.org, right? Lessgovernment.org. Yep. And so click on the link. You can say, it says join with Less Government. You just put your name and your email. He doesn't sell your info. I've been a subscriber for years now. And what you get is you get these newsletters with this information in it. And I promise you, it's just as entertaining to read as it is to listen to Seton on the radio with me. But the good news is you don't miss any of the additions. And this is all he does, is he just catalogs what the government is doing and brings it to the attention of, in this case, letting the Trump administration know that this is going on. And I just want to add this as we're going out of this interview, because Seton said the guy's name, and I immediately started laughing. His name is Deep, D-E-A-P, Ubi, U-B-H-I. You can
Deep
pronounce
Ubi, yeah.
Deep Ubi. So just, That's
Deep
true.
Trouble from Deep Booby.
He didn't make that up. That's the guy's name. So Seton, Motley, lessgovernment.org. We love it when you join us on the show. Thank you for your time today.
You're very kind. Thank you, Stacy.
All right, talk to you later. You guys, Seton's awesome. If you ever met him, you would just be like, this dude is the best. He's awesome. And we really appreciate him joining us. When we come back, we have time for calls if you want, 866-963-2037. We'll have more for you. We'll kind of catch up on the show sheet right after these messages.
Like, I wanted to have the abortion because I was trying to hide the situation.
When a young mom in crisis walks into a preborn pregnancy center, she's welcomed with open arms and given love, support, and a free ultrasound to meet her unborn baby. This young woman not only chose life for her baby, but heard the message of Jesus Christ and was comforted from the guilt and pain that plagued her. Preborn centers lead the nation in providing free ultrasounds. When an abortion-minded woman sees her baby on ultrasound, she's 80% more likely to choose life for her baby. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds, and 100% of your sponsorship goes towards saving babies. To find out more, go to preborn.com. That's preborn.com, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 and say baby. Your love can save a life.
The Christian life is a battle. A wise soldier puts on the whole armor of God so that he is able to stand against the wicked schemes of the devil.
We can have victory over the enemy when we go into the battle, not dependent on our strength, but dependent on the strength of Almighty God.
The Hour of Intercession with Joseph Parker, weekday afternoons at 1 Central on Urban Family Talk.
Laura Perry.
She refused to use the male pronouns or call me Jake. So what that did for me, that she didn't know at the time, that was like a tether to reality. God never let me forget who I was. And that was a radical thought to me, and I did not want to hear it at first. When I first heard it, it really kind of made me angry.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through the 22nd. Learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com.
It's The Candidates with Brett Baer.
Former Maryland Congressman John Delaney was the first Democrat to throw his hat in the ring.
We allow ourselves to be divided and we let our political debate deteriorate into an us versus them, we will all fall short.
Charles Hurd, opinion editor for The Washington Times.
The idea of a guy like this breaking through, I have a hard time imagining it.
Amy Walter, national editor of Cook Political Report.
What he's banking on, Democrats are going to be fighting amongst themselves on the left, and John Delaney becomes the big tent candidate, but is not going to push the party. And that's the only kind of person who can beat Donald Trump.
Chris Stirewalt, Fox News politics editor.
Look for the people who get better at running. Donald Trump started out, and I said, what? But then as he went, he figured out the game pretty quickly, and he got better at it as he went.
You can hear more of this series at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. I'm Brett Baer, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Next is Richard Schwartz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Before you start the clock, could you stop me for a second? It's real discouraging to come up here and see all the heads down. It's like, you know.
Sir, you're on a 2-minute timer here, so let's go.
I'm not following you.
You're on a 2-minute timer.
Could you start it over, please?
No, we're not going to. Just go ahead.
So it was unreasonable for you to ask that people look up and give me their attention?
Sir, you have 2 minutes. We're all looking at you. You have 2 minutes. Now you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I guess I won't be able to say it. Last week, you limited, this kind of goes to the heart of what I was going to talk about, which was the state of our democracy. Last week, you limited speakers because of the number of speakers to 1 minute each, but you allowed Pramila Jayapal to speak as long as she wanted to. It was 4 or 5 minutes. And it reminded me of George Orwell's famous saying from Animal Farm about how all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And that's how I feel like I'm being treated now, just because I was kind of asking for your attention. Like, I noticed you all were very attentive to Ms. Jayapal last week.
So what you're listening to there is a Seattle City Council meeting, and the gentleman that you hear is his private citizen. He's really kind of putting them in their place when the members wouldn't even look up from their computers to give him their attention. Now, okay, so full disclosure, as a school board member, I would sit in scenarios just like that, where we're seated in a semicircle table, seated at the table. We were never lifted up above our constituents. We were all at the same level in a public meeting space in the Board of Education. And people would come in, and they'd have to, if they wanted to make public comment during the public comment period, they would step up to this little podium with a microphone we had set up, and they would state their name and address to prove that they were constituents. Because the only way you could make public comment at our meetings was you had to be a part of the Ladue School District, the space there. You had to be a taxpayer in the district, meaning you live there. And so it's a similar situation to this guy. And they'd had a really volatile meeting the week before, and a lot of people made comments, and one person was allowed to speak uninterrupted without having the time limit enforced on them. And he wanted them to look up. And in the image, you see one has his hand over his mouth, over his face. He's staring down. Some of them are literally hunched over their computers to try to avoid looking at him. The other ones are kind of looking at him and sighing, because they all have microphones too. And the guy is just, he wants to read his comment. And he's just not able to do so because he wants them to pay attention to what he's saying, and they're refusing to look up. Now, she basically tells him he's got 2 minutes. He asks to restart the time. They start sighing and whatnot, and they don't extend his time. Now, let's play devil's advocate for 1 second. We know for a fact that sometimes city council meetings, school board meetings, public meetings can be hijacked by people who they want to make prolonged comments that they've prepared. They spend the whole week, kind of wordsmithing and fine-tuning their comments, and then they get up there and they don't want to sit down. And sometimes these people can make nuisances of themselves because they hinder the good, proper order of the meeting. And so that's why they have the time limits, to stop people from coming up and just pontificating forever. I mean, if you're a talker, guilty as charged, ding, 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 you can get up there and you can just talk for just interminably. And that is the way to derail public meetings, to make it so that, first of all, no one comes and they never get anything done. That being said, I don't think he was saying he didn't want to have a time limit for himself. He was pointing out that Democratic U.S. Representative Pramila Jayapal of Seattle just stood up there and pontificated while everyone else only got a minute. And that was the last meeting. Now, they never responded to the fact that they gave her all of that time and they didn't give it to regular taxpayers, which means it's her. She's more important than everybody else. Now, what do we know about the Seattle City Council? Well, Councilmember Savant, the one who was talking to him, has made a few headlines since her election in 2013. She's an avowed socialist. She also was an Occupy Seattle organizer. She's the author of a Seattle Times op-ed a few years back that, she really wants to address homelessness. And she was one of the people who brought forward that bill that had to be rescinded, that was going to tax Amazon $275 per employee in the city of Seattle to help in their homeless program or problem. So they repealed the Amazon tax because they were let know that, hey, we'll leave. If you tax us $275 an employee, we will leave your city. And they had to bow down because they need that tax revenue. But the bigger issue here is that, and I hate it for this guy, but he said, in our democracy. That's not the way it's supposed to work in our democracy. We don't have a democracy. A democracy is simple mob rule. They have a city council there. Each city council member represents a part of the city of Seattle. Those individuals are representatives of the taxpayers that elected them. So there's a representative form of government. It's not a simple democracy, which is mob rule. And this guy, is as well-intentioned as he is probably someone who voted for one of those nincompoops sitting up there behind that dais. So you get what you vote for. Voting is a transaction, and anyone who is dissatisfied with their representation has the right to organize and remove that representation and come back with somebody who you think will better represent you. But what's interesting about this is that he's getting bitten back by these same individuals, these leftists, these progressives who, once they're elected, they don't give a hoot about what you have to say about what they're doing. We see this all the time. They only come around and look interested in what you have to say when it's time for them to be reelected. But in between that time, they're voting and hobnobbing and getting the lobby lunches and everything else, and they don't care what you think. And that's a huge difference from at least some of what I've seen from Republican representation. I'm just speaking for myself. When I was elected to school board, when people contacted me, I took it seriously. I returned phone calls. I returned emails. I had lunch with people. When they would ask me, can we have coffee? Can we have lunch? I would do it. And when they would accost me and, with some tale of woe or something that they were concerned about, and I would have my little unmentionables in a basket, and I'd be walking in the Walgreens, and I'm like, I'm just here to buy these things these are the things you buy at Walgreens. You know what they are. And they would stop me. Oh, I'm so glad I ran into you. Yada, yada, yada. I would let them explain everything they needed to explain. I would give them brief feedback and tell them that if they wanted to discuss it more, we could meet, or we could have a phone call, or they could email me and I could direct to the proper channel to make sure something happened. Often the thing that would be the subject of the discussion would be something that I, as a school board member, really couldn't do anything about. Specifically, it was an issue that needed to be taken up with a school administrator or even a principal or a teacher. But I felt responsible to these people. And part of it is because when I ran for school board and I lost, I had 450 letters. I got bouquets of flowers. People were just reaching out and literally saying, don't give up. Don't leave the district. Don't leave the area. Keep working. We still need you. We still need you as a part of what we're doing here. And that kind of interaction, that and the fact that my campaign was funded by people literally writing me checks at the grocery store and they'd bump into me, mailing checks to my house, that kind of interaction from people means they're not only depending on you, they're interacting with you because there's a respect there. They're like, look, you're doing something that I don't have the time to do. And so we want you to just don't forget, we're sending you there. Don't forget us. And most Americans feel that way about their elected representatives. But we don't have that kind of interaction because, well, first of all, we have congressional districts of hundreds of thousands of people. Senators, there's 5 million people in the state of Missouri, 5.5 million, something like that. We have 2 senators. I'm not saying that's wrong. We don't need 4 senators. But the point is, we're a smaller state. And so 2 senators, they divide that number of people, and they're representing all of us. The congressional members have fewer people, but still it's a lot of people for them to actually keep in contact with. And the likelihood of you running into your House rep in the Walgreens or the grocery store is just minuscule because they spend most of their time in D.C. But these people are still accountable to us, whether it's a city council member or, the county executive or a senator. They are responsible to us. And our representative form of government doesn't change just because they have more of us to deal with. And they should feel responsible enough to us to raise their head up from their computer and look at us when we're making a comment in public, to respond to our emails. Their staffers should respond, to meet with us if we have a concern that is pressing that their office can actually do something about. And our responsibility to them is to manage them. And when they don't pass muster, our responsibility to them is to remove them from office, whether it's by voting someone else in, primarying them during the primary, or recalling them from office through the proper channels. And when we start to do that, they will start to behave as if we are their bosses. But they won't act that way. An unmanaged employee is someone who will not acknowledge your authority after an amount of time has passed by. It's a ruined employee because you have to fire them in order to get someone in there who will listen to you. So if you don't manage an employee, they will eventually become that. And that is what we're seeing with our elected representatives in Washington, D.C. And I just think it's a huge shame. And I really felt bad for this guy. Listening to him, he had something he wanted to say, but he knew he wasn't going to get their attention, and it was just a waste of his time. But it's what he voted for. And I hope he plans on voting differently. But a lot of these people are saying, in Seattle and other places, they're saying, I'm sick of this. I'm moving out. I just hope when they move, they don't take their wrong-headed ideas that ruined Seattle, ruined New York. They voted these people in, and then take these ideas someplace else and ruin some other good place. All right. I want to get to this audio from President Trump where he says he is fine with people seeing the Mueller report. He was outside the White House. You'll hear a background noise. I believe Marine One is in the background. And the reporters are asking him questions. He's doing a quick gaggle because remember, they're not doing press briefings on a daily basis anymore. But the president makes himself available. They get to yell at him and ask him questions, and he answers. Here it is. It's number 2.
Public have a right to see the Mueller report? I don't mind. I mean, frankly, I told the House, if you want, let them see it. Again, I say, a deputy, because of the fact that the Attorney General didn't have the courage to do it himself, a deputy that's appointed appoints another man to write a report. I just won an election with 63 million votes or so, 63 million. I had 206 to 223 in the Electoral College, 306 to 223. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, I just won one of the greatest elections of all time in the history of this country, and even you will admit that. And now I have somebody writing a report that never got a vote? It's called the Mueller report. So explain that, because my voters don't get it, and I don't get it. Now, at the same time, let it come out. Let people see it. That's up to the Attorney General. We have a very good Attorney General. He's a very highly respected man, and we'll see what happens. But it's sort of interesting that a man out of the blue just writes a report. I got 306 electoral votes against 223. That's a tremendous victory. I got 63 million more. I got 63 million votes. And now somebody just writes a report. I think it's ridiculous, but
it is ridiculous. And the president is right. He won the election, and this is just an attempt to undo that result. That's all it is. It's an attempt to undo the results of the election. And the fact that he keeps telling these reporters that, and they seem like they almost can't comprehend it, and they're not interested in comprehending it. And you know what? I guess what we have to do is we have to just acknowledge that these people are going to be throwing this temper tantrum for 2 more years. As disheartening as it is to acknowledge that, that's where we are, with a bunch of grown people, but the inside of them is still in Toddlerville, which is an insult to toddlers, because toddlers hug you and kiss you, and you get a lot, like when your toddler is having a temper tantrum, there's so many benefits to having a toddler that you can deal with it. But grown-ups, you're getting nothing. You're getting none of that. They're not as cute. They don't have fat arms and fat legs, not fat in the cute way. And these people, they're not cute. They're not small. They're not loving. They're not a part of your family. They're just disgusting, immature adults who don't have the ability to accept that they lost. And yesterday on the show, we had some audio, and we discussed a little bit how this is this Democratic thing that it's the thing Democrats do. They lose an election, they have to sue about it. They lose an election, they have to change the Electoral College. They lose an election, they need 16-year-olds to vote. They lose elections, they need to bring in foreigners and make them lawful by illegal immigration. Candidates, the blonde one, her name is slipping my mind right now. She was just talking about that illegal aliens deserve the right to pay into Social Security. Kirsten Gillibrand. She's a presidential candidate on the D side. She says illegal aliens need to have the right to vote. They need to be able to pay into Social Security, and they need to pay taxes. That would mean they're citizens. What is she talking about? We know she's not that stupid, so this is a way they can force America into socialism. And they wonder why we are not for that. God bless Donald Trump. Let's hope he wins again. But right now, that's the end of the show. God bless you from the heartland, citizens. Until tomorrow, have a good evening.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of Urban Family Talk